I wanted to start out with a practice right away, so a grounding technique. I'm going to be talking a little bit about stress and how it impacts self and collective care. I'll touch briefly on some of the benefits of chair-based yoga practices to manage stress and foster resilience and increase connection within the relationships that sustain and restore us. The practices that I want to share with you today are going to be woven throughout our time together to give you a sense of how you might incorporate some of these very practical tools into your day. So again, these are the kinds of practices that you might explore at your desk, maybe even in the car before you go into work or when you're coming home. These are also practices that you could share with residents if you feel, like they might be useful. So the first practice that I'd like to invite you to join me in is a grounding practice. Grounding can be a practical tool for staying present, especially in stressful situations or conversations. It can be supportive during transitions. So that transition from work to home or home to work. Grounding practices are a great way to start or end a meeting and can also be really supportive in terms of managing one's nervous system uh, after or before a stressful conversation. Grounding can support de-escalation. And as I said before, these are pretty simple practices that if it felt useful, you could share this with a resident. So this grounding practice is going to be like everything that we do together. You've got choices in all of it. If something that I invite you to do doesn't feel right for you, you don't have to do it. If there's a different sort of practice that you want to explore during this time, you can feel free to do that. If you're curious about joining me in this grounding, the invitation is to start out in a comfortable seated place. Consider here, if you're seated in a chair, coming a little closer to the edge of your chair so that your feet make pretty firm contact with the floor. Feet could be a comfortable distance apart, whatever that looks like for your body. You could bring your hands to rest on your lap or alongside your body. Your eyes could be open or your eyes could be closed. In your own time, dropping down into some slow, full breaths, in and out through your nose. Consider here gently deepening your inhale and subtly lengthening your exhale. This nostril breath with a lengthening of your exhale is one way to send a signal of safety to your brainstem. So this is a kind of breathing that you might explore in order to support stress management. Nostril breath with a lengthening of your exhale to send a signal of safety to your brainstem. And as you continue to explore breath, I'll invite you to join me in the first step in grounding by dropping your awareness down and noticing where your feet are making contact with the support of the floor. So there's no sensation that you necessarily need to be feeling. This is a practice of curiosity, of attending to sensation moment to moment. a practice of mindfulness where your feet meet the floor as you breathe. For the second step in grounding, consider bringing your awareness up and placing a hand at the center of your body. Might be your belly, maybe your chest, your choice. With a hand resting on your belly or your chest, you could attend to the weight and the warmth of your hand here. You might even notice the rise and fall of your front body on your inhale and your exhale. And resting a hand in this way can support the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin, in turn, can support an experience of calm and connection in the context of relationships in particular. This second step in grounding, a hand resting on your front body, slow, full breaths in and out through your nose. And for the last step in grounding, invitation to bring your attention to the top of your head. You could even lengthen up a little bit here through the top of your head if you choose. And if you do choose to explore that lengthening up movement, you might notice some sensation, like the sensation of muscles activating in order to support that upward movement. Tending to any sensation that you notice as you lengthen through the crown of your head in this last step in grounding. And when it feels right for your body, you could take a deep inhale through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. Letting go here of any kind of intentional breathing for the practice. You could let your breath come naturally now. If your eyes are closed, you could open them. Yeah, and make yourself comfortable. So I'd like to just hear from a couple folks in the chat. What did you notice in that practice? What arose in your experience? What did you notice about that practice? Yeah, some neck and back pain, a sense of calm within. Yeah, so one of the things about this practice, I just want to speak to what Tammy said, is that, we're bringing awareness to sensation. And when we bring awareness to sensation, it means that we can take better care of ourselves. So noticing neck and back pain is an important step, right, in addressing it. Tight muscles, body instead of thoughts, great. Areas where I was tense. Sharon, nice to see your name here. Peacefulness, great. Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate you joining me in it. So, I have a bit of a sense of some of the sources of stress that you all probably experience in your work. And, those might include things like having a hard time finding the resources that you need in order to support wellness. Certainly, some of the resources that Safe Care BC are offering are really great. Work that requires exposure to traumatic stories, traumatic experiences. And again, I'd just like to get a sense from you in the chat, like, what are some sources of workplace stress that you experience? Grief. Yeah. Yeah. Others and our own, I think. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Grief is a big one. Agitated residents. Yep. Not having resources. ER, racism. Yeah, family dynamics, relationships with colleagues, big emotions, lack of support. Yeah, lots to do and not enough time to do it in. Okay, thank you for this. I appreciate you sharing, your experience with me. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about stress and burnout. And certainly what I'm seeing here is, some stress is systemic, right? Some of it is interpersonal. Yeah, it takes place, and some of it's relational, right? So chronic stress can be defined as a prolonged and almost constant feeling of stress that negatively impacts our health. And it can be caused by everyday pressures of family and work and or by traumatic situations. And I would say, given what I saw in the chat very briefly, that there's a layering, right, of sources of stress and trauma that exist. So chronic stress occurs when the body experiences stressors with such frequency and intensity that the nervous system doesn't have a chance to activate the relaxation response on a regular basis in order to restore and recover. What this means is that the body stays in a constant state of physiological arousal. Now, when our bodies stay in this state, there are some ways of trying to regulate our nervous system or come back into the window of tolerance that lots of folks will access. And these ways of managing the nervous system, while they can be effective in the short term, can leave us under-resourced, more vulnerable to burnout and vicarious trauma. They can increase isolation and also make it more difficult to engage in self and community care. So I'm referring to ways of managing the nervous system that include things like substance use and other types of addictions. So I'm not saying that these aren't effective in the short term. I'm just saying that ultimately they don't always serve us in the long term. So this kind of chronic stress and the resulting nervous system dysregulation that occurs keeps one's body in a constant state of like on mode, continuously flooding the body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. That on mode, that flooding of stress hormones affects our muscles. It creates muscle tension that can create a lot of pain, impacts our digestion, can impact sleep, can lower immunity, can impact our mood, and also brain function. Ultimately, it puts a lot of wear and tear on your system, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This wear and tear can leave us vulnerable to burnout, vicarious trauma, and increased isolation. Most importantly, I think it disrupts our relationships, our ability to co-regulate. Now, I understand that this slide is referring to folks as therapists and clients. And I know that many of you have different relationships and titles. with the residents that you're working with. But what I like about this slide is that it gives us a really great visual of the process of co-regulation. So when we're able to effectively manage our own stress or nervous systems, it means that we're able to effectively communicate or send signals of safety to the people around us. When we're able to manage our nervous systems and send signals of safety to the people around us, whether they be residents, coworkers, family members, community members, it supports the regulation of their nervous systems as well. So we're able to send signals of safety to the people around us when we're calmer and more regulated. They pick up those signals and they send them back. And that supports the regulation of our nervous system. So our health and well-being is very intimately linked to one another's. When we experience chronic stress and it's unchecked, our ability to co-regulate with the people in our lives is deeply, deeply impacted. So what I'm going to be sharing with you in a moment is sort of like a longer practice, a longer chair yoga practice. And this practice is not unlike the grounding practice that we explored, in that it can be helpful for activating the parasympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic nervous system. Both of these branches of the autonomic nervous system are always on. Yeah, but the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest system, the one that's probably, pretty dominant in the space right now, is typically the one that we're interested in making sure is running really well. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for responses to threat, like fight, flight, and freeze. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is what comes in to rest and recover. These kinds of practices, like we're about to explore in our chair yoga practice, utilize the breath to send signals of safety to the brainstem and to activate the parasympathetic nervous system or relaxation response. So they're great for supporting sleep and brain function. Chair yoga and the practices within it utilize the breath and the body to increase energy and alertness as well. These practices support self-awareness and mindfulness. And as I kind of mentioned a bit earlier when there was a response in the chat about some back pain, increased self-awareness and mindfulness are linked to our ability to care for ourselves better. So a lot of the time, if we're really dysregulated and our bodies don't feel like safe places to be, we'll abdicate from our bodies in order to make it through the day. These practices bring us back into our bodies in a gentle way and also provide us with tools to support an experience of feeling safer in one's body. Finally, these practices support self and co-regulation. So they're ultimately an antidote to burnout. So we are, as Carissa said, going to have a little bit of time to go to answer any questions that you might have. But right now, I'm going to invite you to join me in a practice. Okay. So for this practice, yeah, I'm going to ask you to join me for about 20 minutes. And the invitation is going to be to join me through breathing, through grounding, through some of the physical forms of the practice, and then we'll come to a stillness practice. You've got choices in everything that we do here. So if something doesn't feel right for you, you don't have to do it. My invitation to you throughout this practice is to notice what you notice. Okay, so notice what arises in your own experience. You might notice something in particular coming from me that you're curious about. And as I said, we can have a conversation about that when we've wrapped up. So to begin, consider coming to a comfortable seated place a little closer to the edge of your chair. And that means, if you're a little shorter in the leg, as I am, that your feet will make firm contact with the floor. Feet can be a comfortable distance apart. Hands can come to rest on your lap or alongside your body. And you could practice here with your eyes open or your eyes closed, your choice. If it feels right for your body, transitioning towards some slow, full breaths in and out through your nose. A gentle deepening of your inhale, a subtle lengthening of your exhale. Activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Nostril breath with a lengthening of your exhale. And when you're ready, we could move towards grounding. The first step in grounding is an invitation to notice where your feet make contact with the floor as you breathe. So again, dropping down. As one of the residents or one of the participants said, dropping down into your body where your feet meet the floor. For the second step in grounding, you could start to bring your awareness up. Maybe placing a hand on your chest or on your belly, your choice. You could attend to the weight and the warmth of your hand resting on your front body. And remember, letting a hand just hover over your belly or your heart is an option here too. And deep inhales, long exhales. For the last step in grounding, invitation to bring your attention to the top of your head. You could even lengthen up a little bit here through the top of your head if you choose. And if you do choose to explore this lengthening up movement, you could pay attention to the sensation of muscles activating, in particular in your back body, to support this upward movement. So we're always attending to sensation. And in preparation for the first form, which is an invitation to link the movement of your body with your breath, you could place your hands on your knees. So here, consider exhaling to round your spine, to round your shoulders, to release your chin towards your chest, and inhaling to lengthen your spine, to draw your chest forward, to tilt your chin up and look up. So this is the invitation for flow. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see. It's an exhale to round your spine, release your chin, and an inhale to lengthen your spine, to tilt your chin up, to look up. So you can continue to flow here at your own pace. And you know, there may be a point in this flow where you feel called to pause, to hold, to breathe. And that's fine, or you might continue to flow. You could be tracking sensation at each phase of the flow. So here we combine a variation of forward fold and a variation of back bend. Traditionally in yoga, back bends are seen as being forms that support bringing energy up. Yeah, so this inhale is the back bend. And forward folds are seen as forms that support bringing energy down. So this kind of flow might support an experience of centeredness, balancing energy. You can see what you think about that. See if that's true in your experience, and we might flow for two. And one. One more cycle of breath here, but really moving at your own pace. Yeah, and if this flow feels complete for you, I'll meet you back at a neutral spine. And in preparation for the next form, you could release your arms down alongside your body. Now, again, this is a invitation to link the movement of your body with your breath. And the way that this can look is to inhale, to circle your arms up, and then to exhale and release your arms back down alongside your body. That's the invitation for flow here. Inhaling, circling your arms up, exhaling and release. So for some people, linking the movement of the body with the breath supports an experience of calm. You can see if that's so for you. There's a little science that suggests that extending arms up overhead can be helpful for bringing energy up. So again, this is the kind of flow that might support a balancing of energy. You know, experience in these practices is really subjective. So they can change person to person, day to day. So there's always this gentle invitation to notice what's so for you. You know, if you like, here on the next inhale, you could circle your arms up, interlacing your fingers. You might extend your index fingers up and cross your thumbs in preparation to exhale for a side bend over to the right. So there can be a lot of sensation to attend to here as you breathe in this side bend. And again, that's such a big part of this practice, letting go of, you know, things needing to look right or do it right, and kind of stepping into noticing how they feel. With your next inhale, you can come on back to center. With an exhale, releasing for a side bend over to the left. Now, you might notice some differences in sensation, flexibility, experience from one side to the other. Noticing those differences. And with an inhale, coming on back to center. With your next exhale, you could release your arms down alongside your body, palms tilted forward, eyes open or closed. And we might take a few minutes here together in the pause. Here in seated Tadasana, mountain form. Noticing what you notice. And for the next form, the invitation is going to be to join me in an orienting turn. So one of the ways that I'll invite you to orient is to keep your eyes open for this practice. So to begin, you could look ahead and simply notice whatever it is that you're looking at. Shape, colors, might be looking at windows, doors, objects. When you're ready, on an inhale, lengthening through the crown of your head. As you exhale, tracking the environment while you turn all the way to the right. Left hand can come to right knee, turning to look as far over your right shoulder as you like. Now, what you're going to be looking at on this side is going to be different, right? And we're orienting to the environment by taking in whatever it is that is in your line of sight. Left hand on right knee. Yeah, you might have your right hand resting on the armrest of a chair or even the seat of your chair. Nostril breath, lengthening of your exhale. So this kind of orienting turn can be helpful for supporting digestion. It's also experienced by some practitioners as a helpful way to address experiences of hypervigilance or not always feeling particularly safe in a space that is, for all intents and purposes, pretty safe. On your next exhale, tracking the environment as you return to center, a neutral spine. Yeah, we can come on into the other side when you're ready. And inhale to lengthen through the crown of your head. In your own time, as you exhale, tracking the environment. Turning to look as far over your left shoulder as you like. Right hand to left knee. Your left hand could come to the armrest or the seat of the chair. Now looking as far over your left shoulder as you like. And again, taking in colors, objects, shapes, maybe exits, windows, nostril breath, long exhales. There's an opportunity here to attend to any differences in sensation or experience from the first side. And then when it feels right for your body, as you exhale, initiating returning to center, tracking the environment, you can really take your time. And once you've returned to center, eyes could be open or eyes could be closed. So I'm going to be sharing one more breath practice with you. This is referred to in Sanskrit as Brahmari breath, and Brahmari means a humming bee. The invitation in this breath is to breathe in and out through your nose, as we've been doing, but to hum for the entire length of the exhale. So it's an inhale through the nose and then a humming for the entire length of the exhale. This is a way of breathing that can stimulate something called the vagus nerve, which is deeply connected to our sense of safety in the world and in relationships. So the humming here vibrates the larynx, which is innervated by the vagus nerve. Now, often I find when I'm practicing this breath with folks online, my humming kind of goes in and out. But again, the invitation for you, if you choose to explore the breath, is to hum for the entire length of the exhale. Okay? So we'll start together. And when we come to the last round, I'll let you know. In preparation for Brahmari breath, a deep inhale through your nose and humming on the exhale. Going at your own pace now. One more cycle. Transitioning back towards slow, full breaths in and out through your nose. And when you're ready, a deep inhale through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. And maybe you could let that mark the end of any kind of intentional breathing for the practice, letting your breath come naturally now. Perhaps we could take a moment and notice any ripple effects from Brahmari breath, anything that you notice arising in your experience. If your eyes are closed, you could open them and make yourself comfortable. So thank you so much for joining me in this practice. I really, really appreciate you being open, to practicing some of these techniques with me. And I'm curious about what you noticed in that practice. You can feel free to put that into the chat if you like. I also, Janet, it's so nice that you're here. Thank you for that. You can put whatever your experience was like in the chat, And I also know that we wanted to have this time for any questions or comments. And I want to invite Carissa if there's anything here that you're wanting.
Yeah, so feel free to put in the chat, as Nicole said, on how that experience was. And if you do have any questions for her, now we have this last 15 minutes here. You can ask away and we'll get those answered for you.
Yeah. So in the meantime, head feels clearer, sinus is clearer too. Great. Relaxed muscle tension, slowing down release. Yeah, feel more relaxed. Good. And this is great. So what I'm hoping that you're getting from this, well, first of all, you've got these practices now, right? You've got the recording, you're going to have a recording, so you can access these practices with me every time. Um, and I see your question, Tammy, and I'll attend to that in a moment. But I hope that one of the things that you take away from this practice is that these are really simple body-based things that you can do at work, at your desk. I mean, depending on where you work with some of the movements and some of the breathing, right? But even something as simple as feeling your feet on the ground and nostril breath can be a great, like super powerful support in a stressful and, sometimes traumatic day. So Tammy asked, do you push through the pain? I did, and I do feel better. You know, typically we would say that, pain is a really important messenger and you want to mind it. At the same time, Tammy, like, your body you're the expert in your body. And if there was something that you felt safe enough to kind of push through, um, I trust you to be the expert in that. But I wouldn't personally tell anyone to like push through pain. I would say that I totally trust you as the expert in your body, though. These are supportive practices. But what if you help others co-regulate, but they don't have any people who can help you co-regulate? I think what's most important is simply understanding that this mechanism is in place, because I think a lot of people don't totally get that. I think what's really powerful is understanding that our health and well-being is intrinsically linked to the health and well-being of everyone around us and everyone on the planet. I think we've kind of got that information by now. And when we can go into our work knowing that, like, what I'm doing with my breath and my body isn't just for me, it's for the other, that shifts some of how we experience relationships at work. And if you have a community or a family and you're not getting resource, like everybody's stressed out or dysregulated, then these are practices that you can share with people and have them notice what they notice and get what they get. I hope that that's somewhat helpful. It's been helpful for me to look at my work much in this way. Like, there's only so much, that I can do to support someone, but I know that this is a piece that's really important. I'll try to turn my head over my shoulder while at work when I can, in between conversations with clients. Great. Awesome. How interesting for those of us who hold values that others come first. Hmm. Yeah. More and more, I see the people that I work with and my personal relationships as an ecosystem, all interconnected, rather than someone else coming first. I felt your calmness and it helped me regulate. That's co regulation, right? Can we do a quick review, please? I will take notes to have handy. So I guess in short, chronic stress means that our ability to rest and recover, our ability for our parasympathetic nervous system to come on is thwarted. So we end up in this constant state of arousal. Sometimes the way that we bring that arousal down is through substances or other kinds of behaviors that, although they're kind of effective, don't always have a lot of long-term benefit and actually can be quite harmful ultimately to us and to the people that we care about. So what we've been exploring here is how to use your breath and your body as a resource for regulating your nervous system, either alongside those substances and behaviors, Jennifer, right? I'm kind of in the harm reduction camp, or instead of, ultimately. But there's a fair bit of science that suggests, if you're into science, there's a fair bit of science that suggests like that these are really effective ways of managing chronic stress, of managing trauma symptoms, right? And creating a heartier stress response and supporting the people that we work with, the residents that we work with. I hope that's kind of it in a nutshell.